KMK Racing here with Opinion Piece talking about Hailie Deegan for Fanside on racecanada.world. Make sure you guys subscribe. We are available on all social media platforms at the moment. We are still trying to get on iTunes. So anywhere else right now, definitely check us out. We're talking about Deegan's debut, but we're also talking about what we need to see going forward. And this is a more or less a commentary on the broadcast team. What we don't need to see is over hyping Hailie Deegan. We saw it many times. We've seen it with many different drivers. NASCAR is very guilty for this because they did the same thing when Juan Montoya came to NASCAR. They did the same thing when Dario Franchitti came to NASCAR. They like to showcase and talk about people that aren't homegrown stars. Hailie Deegan is one, though, that the series desperately wants. When Danica Patrick came aboard, she was up there in terms of popularity. Very much. Sponsors just weren't really flocking to her, and it's very interesting that that was the case, but it more or less showed that her production on the racetrack really wasn't garnering much attention. So what NASCAR really wants is a female driver who is going to be successful. Now, she has all the tools to do it. She's also much younger than Danica Patrick was when Danica started in NASCAR. Remember, Danica had already been through the Road to Indy program. Now, this was before kind of the Road to Indy was a thing. She had been through the Toyota Atlantic with Bobby Rahaal's team. She had had the opportunity. She led the Daytona. She led the Indy 500, something like Rusty Wallace. She led the Indy 500. She had had some great runs, but she didn't win for Rahal. She eventually got her opportunity. She won a race in Japan that was more or less on fuel mileage. Now, I'm not going to disparage her for that. She still did win the race. What was the issue was when she came to NASCAR, ESPN would not stop with Danica Mania. It was everywhere. Every broadcast when she was in the Xfinity series, it was like every pit stop. It was every race. It was, this is the thing, is there are so many guys that go out there and have the smaller programs that get no airtime at all. One of the things I'll talk about is, DGM, for example. I love DGM, Mario Gosling's team in the Xfinity series. The amount of times that team has been butchered in terms of their on air, the talk about them is absolutely ridiculous. You constantly hear, LaBay's name being butchered last week by Jeff Burton. Josh Williams, they just mention Williams. They don't really say who he is, what he's about. Very rarely will you ever hear the 90 car being mentioned about. And it's very similar, Bailey Curley, all the time you hear that. And his name's Bailey Curry, So it happens all the time, and there's just no mention of these guys during the race. And unfortunately, when ESPN was in charge of things, they were absolutely brutal for showcasing Danica so much throughout the race that it became absolutely nauseating for me. And I really wanted to see her succeed. Now, the problem is, I believe that she was rushed too fast. And that's one of the things that has been talked about with Hailie's push, is that they don't want to move her too fast. But in this day and age, it's almost like in sports in general, it's not even just racing, it's in sports. In the NHL, in the NBA, we see players coming in at 18 years old. Like they are put right into the spotlight now. And in hockey, the retirement age, you used to get up to your 40s, mid 40s, you could play. The majority of players are like done by 35. In NASCAR, you could race well into your 50s. Now all the new kind of age retirements is approaching 40 or in your early 40s. Clint Boyer is retiring at 41. I believe it was Jimmy Johnson's going to be 44 maybe. So it's not. I remember Terry Labonte winning at 46 at Darlington. You're not seeing that anymore. And, so she's got time, but it's almost like the way people are being rushed now. Christopher Bell moving up in his 20s. You know, Eric Jones was moved up really quickly. Chase Elliott was moved up really quickly. These guys are all going to soon be in like prime, like mid 30s altogether. But you're going to have some guys, and it's why Kyle Busch, it seems, when you kind of go, when you realize how young he still is, like, holy crap, he was brought in so young. She has the opportunity to be probably the best female prospect in racing, at least in NASCAR. We've seen very successful women across motorsports, but they don't really get the mention. Christina Nielsen, a champion. Catherine Lake, a champion. Amy Ruman, champion. Brittany Force, champion. You know, Ashley Force, race winner. Courtney Force, race winner. You know, Leah Pruitt, race winner. You know, battling for championships. These, you know, women don't get the amount of press that, say, Danica Patrick got. Danica Patrick running 35th, you know, 3 laps back. Hailie Deegan has the opportunity to be way bigger than Danica Patrick was, but what they don't need to do is focus on her so much, because that's so much pressure. It's so much pressure. It's like here in Toronto, we have the Maple Leafs, and the one things that I talk about is the Maple Leafs players that come here that have to put up with that pressure of playing for a huge market. It's like Boston. It's like New York. You have so much pressure. If you are the only female racer in NASCAR, you're thought of as this huge prospect. You're going to have so much already on your shoulders to succeed. What you don't need is the commentary adding on it by focusing on every pit stop, on every restart. You know, Fox, to their credit, you know, they did talk about it, but they did not need to interview her today. 16th place. Good that she finished. Great that she finished. But they don't need to do that, because that's going Danica Mania. If she gets a top 10, then maybe you can interview her. But the fact that you had other guys that maybe haven't had as much success this year that you don't interview on a regular basis, you know, why is there the double standard? You know, and women want to be treated fairly. That's the whole point of them racing, right? Is they want to compete with the men. What I want to see is more women and minorities in racing. That's where I think the series really needs to help out. They need to get sponsors interested in marketing these drivers, because what we saw today was Hailie Deegan in essentially a blank 17. It was sponsored by Ford, but essentially it was blank. She had Toter on the quarter panels, but that was it. No Monster Energy, no Craftsman, nothing else. It was literally Ford. That's where my worry lies, because she's going to need to get a sponsor that is going to be with her all season next year. They have not announced anything yet. They just said she's going full-time racing. So I really do hope that we are going to see some new sponsors come aboard to try and be with her. That's why it's so important that they stop focusing so much on promoting her. Let her racing speak for itself. And listen, you've got other women down there. They've got some developmental drivers. You've got Isabella Robusto driving for Rev Racing. You've got Gracie Trotter, who won a race without having to push somebody out of the way to do it. Brittany Zamora as well. There's women that could be future stars. They just need to be given that opportunity. And it's very important. Bill McAnally has done this by putting women in his cars. They need other big name team owners to give women a chance. And right now, there really hasn't been an opportunity for that. I would love to see it. I think teams, you know, GMS, Thor Sport, if I'm Hailie Deegan, I'm going for an opportunity with DGR Crosley next year. But if an opportunity to drive for Thor Sport comes up, I'm taking that opportunity. Look at the quality, okay, of trucks. Not to mention Hailie Deegan surrounded by, now, Who knows what the driver lineup will be then? But you take Grant Enfinger, former ARCA champion, regular season champion. You take Matt Crafton, multi-time champion. Johnny Sauter, a champion. Ben Rhodes, very successful truck driver. Any of those guys. Obviously, there would have to be one of them gone for her to move in there. But to me, that's where you're going. That's a higher level than DJR Crosley. Yes, they've got Todd Gilliland, the Front Row Motorsports deal. They've got Tanner Gray, but that truck team is not the best. It's not the top tier. So we have to make sure that her promotion isn't over the roof. Let her driving speak for itself. She has to finish races. That's no contact, finishing. Doesn't matter if it's lead lap or not to start, finish the races. What we saw with Natalie Decker was not what we want to see for Hailie Deegan. Natalie, I think, was rushed. Same thing that Danica Patrick was. Danica was meant to be an Xfinity Series regular. That, I believe, was the ceiling for her. And she was in the top 10 in her very first season. She finished top 10, I believe, in the points. That's where she needed to be for like 4 to 5 years, realistically. And then call it a retirement. Like, unfortunately, they say there's no money in the Xfinity Series. I beg to differ. I think the excitement level in the Xfinity Series shows that it is a very compatible series for many people. And to me, what Hailie needs to do is be 2 years in trucks, at the very least 2 to 3 years in trucks, then a year in Xfinity, then you move up to the Cup Series. I mean, she needs to be able to be in a top tier ride. I don't think anybody here wants it to be that Hailie Deegan moves up and then ends up at Front Row Motorsports at the end of the day. I think the end goal would be for her to be at a Penske Racing, not a Roush, not a Front Row. It would need to be Penske. That overall, or Stuart Haas, obviously. Stuart Haas Racing. Those are the two, I think, if she's going to continue on as a Ford development driver. Now, again, we don't know what that means, whether that's going to continue all the way up. But there's going to be seats coming available because Kevin Harvick's car is going to be available. Obviously, Eric Almirola at some point is going to that seat's going to become available. Brad Keselowski, it's going to become available. So there's going to be Ford seats available. It's just, is she going to be with Ford in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, or is another manufacturer going to sneak her in? Lastly, she has to watch how her presence is. Unfortunately, in this day and age, no matter what you say, you offend somebody. She's had various opinions and thoughts on, say, the coronavirus and her political views. No matter what she does, somebody's not going to like it. So either she says something and it offends somebody, or she says this, listen, I thought that the COVID stuff was out of touch and not really appropriate for her point of view. But if she's a Trump supporter, if she's a Republican, that's what her family supports, it is not you as a race fan to slam her for that. As a race fan, you are to discuss her as a racer. And that's what I'm doing here. We're not talking about her as a person. We're talking as a racer. I see potential there. What she needs to watch, though, as a very personable, very well-liked racer, is she has to make sure that her social media presence is appropriate, as well as her on-track presence. One of the problems that we've seen with her is that she's very aggressive, and aggressiveness is great to a degree. If you piss off all the people on the racetrack with you, you're not going to be well-liked, and people are not going to cut you a break. And in a sport where it's very hard to break in as a female, I can't imagine that the male demographic is going to appreciate constantly being roughed up by her. So definitely not in the NASCAR brass. We've seen it in the past. They don't take kindly to young stars coming in and acting like a fool. So definitely, I want the best for the females coming up. I want women in racing. I want minorities in racing. Hailie Deegan has the potential. Now it's only up to her to make sure that she is able to provide results going forward. This has been a fan side opinion piece by Cam K. Make sure to follow us on all social media platforms, including YouTube, including Podbean, Spotify, so hopefully soon to be on iTunes. You can also check us out on our website and follow myself and GRAYDON BUNN on Twitter. You can definitely check us out there. We're always there to talk racing, and keep it posted to racecanada.world and Fanside for some new episodes with some special guests as Chester comes in to say hello. Have yourselves a great night, everybody, and we'll talk to you after the Cup race tomorrow.